Have you ever wondered what God thinks about domestic violence? Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 5 Minutes in Coffee. I want to talk to you about something, and I find this subject to be very serious, especially with it being October, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I want to do my very best to make this as real as possible. If you are a father, I want you to really think about this example, especially if you have a daughter. Even if you don't, you can still relate. Or if you're a brother, I want you to think about this, especially if you have a sister, but you should still be able to relate even if you do not have a sister. Let's imagine that you have something that's very valuable. Maybe you own a business and you're looking to promote someone to a significant position. Or maybe you have significant influence over something extraordinary. Maybe you're a movie director and you're looking to pick the next superstar because once you pick this individual and groom them, they are going to be a superstar. Whatever it is that you have the ability to truly bless someone and change their life. And as you are thinking about who should I promote, an individual approaches you and says, I would like to be considered for this position. And he goes over all of his wonderful qualifications. As a matter of fact, this individual may even be overqualified. But then he says one thing that's very unique. He says to the father, because you are going to bless me and our relationship will form, I need to be honest with you. And he says something very similar if this is a brother as well. Because you are going to bless me, our relationship is going to grow. So I want to be honest with you. And what this individual says is, I have a relationship with your daughter. Or if it's a brother, he says, I have a relationship with your sister. What this individual says is, your daughter just makes me so upset. Sometimes I need to put her in her place. Sometimes I need to physically harm her to let her know that I mean business. Sometimes I have to call her out her name. Sometimes I may even have to bloody her nose a bit. But she always gets the point because I need to get my point across. Some days it may just be one punch to the face, but most of the time it's about 10 blows before she stops talking. And every single day I have to remind her that she's dumb, or she's ugly, or she's pathetic. And I'm very consistent in this area. And the only reason why I'm telling you this is so that when you bless me with this blessing and you see your daughter, or when you see your sister and you see the bruises, or you see that she has become downcast and depressed, that you are not surprised by this behavior. Now let me ask you a question. Are you going to bless this individual? Why? Or why not? How do you feel about this individual at this time? As a father with young children, I know how I feel at this point. Let's slightly change the scenario. Let's say that you are a mother or a sister. You are a mother to a son or a sister to a brother. Very similar situation. And you have something of significant value. You have the ability to change someone's life, to bless them in a way that is unheard of. And then this individual approaches you and says, I would like to be considered for your blessing. But before we engage in this blessing, I want to be honest with you. Because once you bless me, our relationship will grow and I don't want any surprises. And as she begins to speak in regards to either your son or your brother, this is what she says. Your brother is an okay guy, but sometimes I have to remind him how dumb he is. And I disrespect him constantly to get my point across. I disrespect him in public all the time. You should see his face. It's written all over his face how small and how embarrassed he is and how mighty I am before him. And every so often I hit him, and I always make sure I'm wearing my rings to get my point across. And then she says, I wanted to share this because once you bless me and our relationship grows and your brother or your son begins to become more depressed, I just don't want there to be any surprises. Now, as a mother or as a sister, are you going to offer this blessing to this individual? Why or why not? Now let's change the story one last time. And this time, let's say it's God who's doing the blessing, as he is the one who has all blessings. Now, mind you, God is all knowing. God is all powerful. And when he spoke in the Old Testament, his voice sounds like thunder. His voice was so scary that the people were terrified. So just a couple of questions, mainly rhetorical. Whose child are you? Are you a child of God or not? Are the people around you also God's children? Are the people that we have relationships with, are they also God's children? I ask this because we really have to think about how we treat God's children. Can you imagine approaching God and saying, "Please bless me, although I've torn your child down and abused them in a way that is very unloving"? How do you think God views that situation? A verse that I always have to be mindful of is 1 Peter 3:7, which basically states that if I am not loving his daughter, my wife, the way he commands, my prayers may be hindered. And that resonates with me because I have a daughter and I can understand that. So if you are someone who abuses another individual physically or mentally, emotionally, then I want you to think of an excuse to give God the next time you feel the urge to do it. And whatever excuse you give God, you make sure that you are willing to accept that same excuse when it comes to your brother, your daughter, your son, your grandchildren, or whomever you hold close. If you are suffering from domestic violence, please reach out and get help because you are God's children and He does love you and He does want to see you have life full of joy. Thank you so much for your time. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I ask that you would please just share it with one person. This is Jerry with 5 Minutes in Coffee. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it. If you want to support the Christian Strength, please consider becoming a Patreon or making a donation towards the growth of the Christian Strength. Links are in the description. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 5 Minutes in Coffee, the Christian Strength.